Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Home is Where the Dark Is. This is Alex Crescioni. Thank you so much for sharing the videos, for their likes, for the subscribes, for the comments. I really appreciate your engagement so far. We're coming close to 100 episodes of Home is Where the Dark Is. This is episode 91. I'm going to do my best to push to at least 100 episodes and see what happens after that. My goal with this podcast was to hit at least 100 episodes. So we're getting close, and I appreciate your engagement thus far. It means a lot. So in this video, I want to talk about something that I think a lot of individuals in the creative arts faces, which is dealing with self-doubt, dealing with imposter syndrome, dealing with just any kind of insecurity in your work, whether it be art of any kind, music, any kind of creation. I think a lot of us go through this. Some are able to deal with it better than others. I personally do experience self-doubt from time to time, and I think for me it comes in waves, but I think everyone deals with it in some way, shape, or form throughout their career. From my experience, from hearing different interviews and even speaking with some very established artists, everyone has their insecurities, their self-doubt within their art, and it can follow you throughout your whole career. So, for example, I know, let's throw a name out there. I've listened to lots of interviews with Billie Eilish, and she even talks about, she's a perfectionist. A lot of artists are, but I think there's a universal practice of, when you're in the studio, when you're writing a song, when you're creating a piece of art, we tend to nitpick and we tend to overthink. And I think there's a certain threshold of once you cross this threshold, it's like it's diminishing returns after a certain point, because from my experience, all the work that I'm most proud of in my career, these are ideas that were very spontaneous, and they weren't second guess, and they weren't obsessed over. They were just, it was an initial idea, and it was created out of emotion and out of a certain circumstance, and it was, we just let it be what it is. You don't overanalyze the song. You don't change it over and over. You don't sit there and work on the production and the mix and the master for days and weeks and months. And I know like some artists do that, but from my experience, I think the best work and the best art is something that is more spontaneous, and that it's basically it's emoting, it's putting your emotion out there and just letting it be what it is and not overthinking it. And like even bigger artists like Billie Eilish's, the Taylor Swifts, they're very particular and they're perfectionists, but at the same time, it's hard to imagine that people this successful would have insecurities and self-doubt in their art at this point, but it's still there. So for me, I've found throughout my career that, as we progress and as we get better and as we evolve, not only as musicians, but also as individuals, we learn more about ourselves. We're more accepting of who we are. And I think for some people, it does take a while to fully understand and realize, your personal style and your aesthetic and your, what you bring to the table that is unique and different. It can take a while to find that. Some people find it sooner than others, but for me, it's taken time, and I'm just now starting to get a good idea of, what makes me unique and what I can bring to the table musically, production-wise, songwriting-wise, and etc. So I think if you're a musician and you're dealing with self-doubt, it's completely normal, and it's part of the process. It's part of the life of an artist. So for me, some of the ways, if you're struggling with that, for me, some of the ways you can deal with it and you can kind of crush any self-doubt is just know that everybody deals with it. There are very few artists that never doubt their art. I mean, it's normal. So if you could realize and accept that, especially if you're a younger artist or you're in the beginning of your career, you're going to look back on your early work and probably be embarrassed by it, or to some degree, and that's completely normal. So I think the best way to deal with it, if you are experiencing it and it's debilitating or it's causing you to be frozen or stuck in your tracks, like, sometimes I go through phases where, the self-doubt will kick in, and I won't even, I won't even want to start a project, or I won't even want to start writing a song, because I'll just think, well, in a year, I'm just going to hate it anyway, or when I'm going to look back on it and not like it. So why even start it right now? Because, we experienced that, maybe if you're farther along in your career, I'm sure you made records, or you made films or art or paintings or whatever. And as you grow, you look back on it and you're like, oh, that sucked, or, oh, it's not as good as I thought it was. Maybe some people, some of your fans enjoy it, and some other people value it. And I think that's common too. I think the fans you develop throughout your career, oftentimes they value your work more than you do, and they cherish the evolution of your art more than you. That's definitely what I've experienced as well, because I am extremely hard on myself all the time. So I just started writing a song today, and I just was listening back to it a little while ago before I started this podcast, and I was already like, no, it sucks, that part sucks, like, no, I'm gonna redo it. Or it's just a constant struggle, it's a constant battle. So if you're experiencing that yourself, you're definitely not alone, and it's normal, and you just have to accept that's part of the journey, that's part of the career, that's part of the art form. Some days you're just going to maybe, have writer's block, or you're not going to be able to get yourself out of that funk, and that's normal too. You don't have to write every day. You don't have to create every day. Do I think it's beneficial to? Yeah, maybe you could do 5 days a week, 6 days a week, have your Sundays off for you time, for recharge time. I think the more you create, the better. I think some people would consider, quality over quantity, and I think there's a lot of truth in that as well. But I found that, songwriting and creating, it's a muscle and it's a practice, and the more you do it, the better you will get at it. So I think if you can bring yourself to create often, that's the best way to go about it, in my opinion, because if you're taking it seriously and this is what you do as a professional career, of what it is you are aiming to do, you really have to get into the habit of writing a lot, recording a lot, playing shows a lot, rehearsing a lot, whatever you're focusing on. The more you do it, the better. And during these times of self-doubt, if you can bring yourself to push through it and just know, like, yeah, I'm just going through it today. Let me see what I can do, and then revisit it tomorrow. But yeah, there's going to be days where you just don't want to do anything, and that's fine. But try not to get in the habit of that happening too often. And if you need help, or if you're in a slump, reach out to friends, reach out to loved ones, colleagues, people that are in the industry too, that can kind of help you come out of that writer's block, or come out of that slump. So anyway, for me, I think, I just released an album myself, and, it's strange because I've gone through this so many times where it's like I release a song that I've either written myself or I've worked with an artist, and whether it's a song, EP, album, whatever, you put all of your energy and all of your attention and all of your focus into it as you're creating it. And then once it's out and then into the world, depending on how it is received by the fans of the artist, the fans of the music, then it's like, then you kind of, okay, how am I going to feel about this? Even though you feel like it's good in the moment, you feel it's the best work you can do, we kind of judge it also after the fact based on the response. So say you work on a record and you finally put it out, you have your music video, you have your PR campaign, and it's picking up and people are starting to check it out. Say, for example, it doesn't hit the numbers you're hoping it does, or it's not hitting the mark that you hoped. So then, even though you're extremely happy about it and extremely proud of it before it was released, now you might go through these mental roadblocks where it's like, oh, maybe it's not as good as I thought because no one else, it's not getting the attention I thought, or it's not hitting the numbers I thought. So maybe I'm totally off. Maybe my judgment is complete shit. Maybe I have no idea what I'm doing. And I think a lot of people struggle with that as well. But there's factors in place that are out of our control. Like, that's another thing. I feel like we can only worry about what we can control. We can't control the outcome of a release, how well it does or doesn't do. So as hard as it is, I think, the more you can not let the outside forces get to you, the better. So yeah, if you're a musician, just keep writing, keep creating music, keep creating content, keep putting your creativity out and then into the world. Do the absolute best you can with what you have. Work with the best people you can. Put your heart into it, put your all into it, and then at least regardless of the outcome, you did the absolute best you could. And I think that's a great way to get over this self-doubt and the writer's block and the imposter syndrome. So if you know that you are a lifer in music or the creative arts, you know that this is what you will always do, regardless if you make a lot of money and are extremely successful or not. This is what you're going to be doing your entire life. You have to do the absolute best you can to not worry about the forces outside of your control. And I know it's easier said than done, but if you can create a routine of writing, recording, creating a cycle, like a yearly cycle or a quarterly cycle for yourself, so that you can consistently create and put out your art, then eventually something will hit. Eventually something awesome will happen. Eventually something will pay off. But where most people fail is in most people just give up because they're not seeing results soon enough, or they're investing so much money and time into their music career, but they're not getting enough out of it. They're not able to pay their bills. They're still having to have a second job, or they have their normal 9-to-5 job, and there's no shame in that also. But people give up way too soon. I've seen so many talented, extremely creative and talented individuals just give up on music because it's just such a brutal industry, and it can take a lot of time. It takes so much effort, time, and resilience to make it, or whatever make it is, but it takes everything you have. Yeah, there are exceptions. Some people get lucky, but for the majority of us, we have to be extremely resilient, extremely persistent. Pretty much you have to be delusional. You have to think no, I won't take no for an answer, and I'm going to continue to do this for the rest of my life, regardless of the outcome, because I love it so much, and this is all I want to do. But if you feel like if you can imagine yourself not doing music, or if you can imagine yourself doing something else and being okay with it, then maybe you shouldn't do it. The people that can't imagine doing anything else, those are the people that have the potential to make it, because they'll do it regardless. And you really have to think about that for yourself too, is if you honestly feel like, I could see myself doing something else and being happy and being okay with that and being fulfilled and living my life that way. If you honestly feel that, then you shouldn't do music, truly, because it takes everything you have to push through the dark times, to push through and to continue and to follow your purpose. It really does. So just some things to think about here in this episode. I appreciate you listening. I appreciate you tuning in. Here is the physical copies of my new record. It's called The Fearborn Age. It's a digipack. If you'd like to pick one up, there's a link in the description to my online store. It would mean a lot if you grabbed a copy. It's only $20 on my online store. I'll sign it for you. I'll write you a personal message, and it would mean a lot if you pick one up. Thank you so much for listening, and cheers.